20th, March 19th, 1991, interviewing Dorothy Lawn, a longtime resident and member of Newton Free Library staff. Dorothy, how long had you lived or worked here in Newton?
32 years in Newtonville, and then 4 more years in Upper Falls and Lower Falls.
Now, over the years, especially in Newtonville, you must have seen a lot of changes. What was the year that you came to work?
Part-time in 1953, and then I joined the staff in 55.
And was the current building of the Newtonville Library there?
Yes, it was built in 1938, and it looks, except fresh paint every so often, and some new drapes every so often. The big new improvement was the stair elevator, but that's the only major structural change.
Now, over the years in Newtonville, what types of changes, when you first came there, what type of
well, I would
library?
say old-fashioned in the work methods. The typewriters were not electric, and you had the pencil pushers with the erasers on the back, and everything stamped. Everything was stamp. That's the major thing. But over the years, the library it kept up with the times, and it changed as it needed to.
When was the first automated checkout system introduced?
1980. We began a CLSI in 1980.
Was there not any type of automatic systems,
No.
film or anything before that?
Well,
was
not at
just
the
a-
branch, unless down here at the main library
No.
they had some things.
So you continued with the old stamp method up to
until 1980, yeah.
It was always a lively branch, as I understand.
Oh, always very, very busy. Newton Center and Newtonville were forever in competition with each other. I think Newtonville had the edge for years and years and years.
Well, you were certainly in a good population center. How would you say that the library patrons might have changed over the years?
Well, they seem to be unchanging, really. They didn't change too much.
You think Newtonville population as a whole was relatively stable, or do you
Stable, I would say.
You think that the constant attraction of the shopping center right there
It seemed to be the perfect location for our branch library. It was perfect. And Newton Center was perfect also.
Right. Who tended to get the bulk of high school students?
Well,
Did it-
Newtonville, yes, because the library was just 2 blocks down the street.
Right. Now, can you recall what type of library facilities might have been at Newton High School back then, and might there?
Oh, I see. Well, that escalated as time went on. Their school library, the high school library, did get better and better. It wasn't large. And so after a while, at some point in time, the high school business fell off somewhat at Newtonville branch because their own was so good.
But what about those after-school
Oh,
hours?
after school. Oh, yes. Well, when in the 50s and 60s, especially in the evening, it was pretty well jammed. All the tables were jammed.
Were there additional evening hours back
Oh,
then?
yes. It was
What
9
was it?
to 9, Monday through Friday.
Oh, my word.
And sometimes when staff was short, we worked many a day from 9 in the morning until 9 at night, because that was the only way to cover.
My glory. Now, as I recall, there is the children's department downstairs.
Yes.
Was that a long-standing arrangement?
Oh, yes, that was
Was
excellent.
created that way?
Yes, that's true. That was also extremely busy.
Did that attract more children even on off hours when the library wasn't supposed to be open? Or was there always a policy of going down and getting books for children if they wanted it?
No, at one point in time, if they didn't come within the scheduled hours, they didn't. But then after a while, then we did slip down the stairs and go in, unlock the door and get the book.
Well, I bet that generated even more and more.
Yeah.
Now, as far as you can remember, were there always Saturday hours at?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Were they very well attended?
Oh yes.
Yeah. And within my memory, it was the only other branch that when we lessened Saturday hours in summer, it was the only other one with.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. And
Well, that must have made it
yeah.
focus of activity.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think has happened in perhaps, as you call, reading habits? Have people perhaps?
I see that they seem to be interested in the very newest. They seem to want the brightest and the best. They don't go for the classics the way they used to read them. It has to be hot off the press. Yeah.
Now, people, mostly Newton patrons, probably have access for work purposes to other libraries, specialized libraries.
Yes.
Do you see a fall off in more specialized requests towards the mostly recreational, or do you see it balanced?
No, balanced if anything, because especially with the new main library coming up, it's going to be wonderful. They're really going to have everything for all needs. So I think it will be pretty well balanced.
I often thought that, there might have been a trend towards strictly recreational, but then all of a sudden somebody will ask for something very specialized, and of course with the metro system.
Yes, that's
we have
true.
the wherewithal.
I think it'll stay general.
I think
pretty
it's
much.
good that way. It keeps us on our toes. Now, what changed in the children's library had you seen over the years?
Well, I think, at one point in time they were extremely heavy on programs and arts and crafts. Then that sort of dropped off for a while in favor of reading to them or storytelling, with two different things. But now I see that they are going back to the crafts. Rebecca seems to be doing a lot of that at Apple Falls, and Debbie seems to be doing a lot of that at Newtonville. So we're going back to crafts, I think.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah, and at the
cycles.
Yes,
Yeah.
and at the new main library, where the children's section is just marvelous. They have 3 different rooms geared for the crafts.
I think there's a new appreciation for things that one can create, probably. There must be some cyclic theory
Right.
to
It's
it.
a whole new ball game.
Yeah.
It really is.
Now, over the years working for the library, had you seen any difference in public support or public interest in volunteerism?
Oh, volunteers, they have grown by leaps and bounds. People do like to volunteer. There's no doubt about that. And
do you think there's a bigger pool of people
yes,
out
yes,
there?
absolutely. A bigger pool.
Are there
of them.
more retirees, or people who have retired early, or people who want to...
Well, probably a little of the retired people probably have the edge.
They used to sit at home. Now they want
Never they
stimulating
want to be.
atmospheres.
No one is at home anymore. No one.
At least
all
the
day.
library.
Yeah, no matter what the age.
Do you recall some of the volunteers that you had over the years?
Oh, Eleanor Phillips is the last one, and to recite some names, no, I guess I couldn't.
Yeah. Do you find that was the type of person that was a volunteer earlier in the 50s, or were you mostly dependent on paid page help? Or?
Well, it was dependent on the paid pages, but now I think it's going to the volunteers now. They do a good job.
Oh, I think they do.
Yeah.
And they seem to be people who have full, rich lives and just want to be in the library atmosphere, or just find it congenial.
Yes, that's true.
It's amazing.
That's true.
To me. Now, in Lower Falls, where you were, How did you find that different from Newtonville?
Oh, well, quiet in comparison, but then again it had its moments. And then a lot of children came in mid-afternoon. And more in the evening than I would have expected the first year I was there. Last 2 years that seemed to drop off a bit.
It coincided with the end of school,
Well, yes, that's true.
and as you chopped off the hours, I suppose.
Well, yes, that dwindled a little more.
It's a nice location. I've been
It's
there.
perfect. There are a lot of events going on around the library, so that particular area doesn't seem to need the library to be all and everything to it.
Mm-hmm.
So they come in basically for the books there, and not so much for programs or.
Right. Now, in public attitudes towards libraries over the years, what have you discerned about public support?
Well, loud and clear, they have a preset mind attitude. Their thinking is that through their tax dollar, they have prepaid for the services. Therefore, they do think they can wander in and out of the library buildings or anything that's a city service totally free of charge, because in their mind, they have already paid for it. They can't see one dime or one penny more
Yeah, I guess that has
coming out of them, whether it's an overdue book and they owe 10 cents on it. I have a patron fight just as hard with me over one dime as though it were $10. And they say it's the principle of the thing. The principle to them, meaning probably I've already paid through my taxes.
It's interesting because not having that much of a background in Newton, in realizing that the desire and the need for the new building has been at least 50 years here.
Yes.
And has been consistently
Yes.
voted down. And
Yes.
not because there isn't a perception that the library is needed,
Yeah.
but because of the
Yes.
financial obligation.
That's true.
But when you reason it out the way you have, it seems entirely clear
Yeah.
why we're in this extremely old building with a great staff and a great collection, but a very physically deteriorating
Yes.
situation.
They just overlook, the patrons always have overlooked the look of it, probably.
Yeah.
But they want the service. It is that they don't want the libraries. They want them, and they want the books, but they want them totally free.
Right, because a considerable tax dollar has already been paid by
Yeah.
them. It's interesting. Had you, it's all other cities around us have been undergoing different situations. The high school was your elementary school when you were in elementary school, living in Newtonville?
Well, we lived in Newtonville, Newton Center, Newton Corner.
Oh, great. All of those are...
My
Did you walk, of course?
bus or walk.
That was public bus.
Yes, my aunts were school teachers, so I would get a ride occasionally.
They worked in the system, too.
Yes.
So, after elementary school at Baha'i, you went to...
Weeks, junior high school, in Newton Center, and that was a great junior high, and a top system. I was not unhappy there at all.
Was it 7th, 8th, and 9th
7th,
grade?
8th, and 9th.
Right. Yeah, what do you think students of that day, the comparison between students?
The comparison is, they seemed nicer back then, and the grooming was totally different, and their mental outlook was totally different. They seemed to not mind doing the homework, and they seemed to not mind going to school. Lately, now, as a matter of fact, I see, if I'm in Newtonville Square really early, I see the kids sort of hanging around. They're not as interested it seems. They're more into fun.
Right, and other drains on their time that is
Yeah,
reaching out for them.
that's well put. That's good. Fun first, and so there's there again in the mindset business. It was totally different. Perhaps because it was pre-TV. Television was the big thing that began any kind of huge change seemed to spring from first the television.
Late 40s or 50s.
The electronic age really produced a change, I think.
Now, let's say in 7th to 9th grade, was the homework self-contained, or were you already making plans to come into the public library for additional research?
No, it was self-contained, and the textbooks that we had seemed to do it, or the little library that was there.
Right, there already was one. Now, when you got to which high school?
Well, it was the Newton High School. That was its name before it split into the north and the south.
What graduating class were you?
49.
49. What differences in those high school kids?
Oh, a world of difference in look and attitude and behavior. Well, there were naughty things going on, no doubt, but you just didn't hear it that much. It was really in whispers. If there was anything really hot going on, it was whispered.
Discretion.
Discretion, that's what I was groping for. It was discreet, yeah.
I remember discretion. I remember a lot going on myself, but discretion was the key.
Yes, yes.
What do you think that graduating class of 49, how big was it?
Oh, it was a huge class. It was
600
one
or 700?
Yeah, it was easily one of the largest graduating classes.
Yeah. And did most of them at that time go on to higher education?
I would say most of them did. Most of them did.
And did you, when you went on to school, did you live at home or did you?
Yes, no, I commuted.
And where did you go?
Well, I started off at Framingham State. Started out to be a school teacher. Then I decided that perhaps that wasn't quite for me. So then we finished up in a general program at Boston University.
Great. And when did you decide to go into library work?
Well, I sort of fell into it in '53 when I went into it part-time. Alice McMullen was branch librarian at that time.
At Newtonville?
At Newtonville. And then in 1955, I decided for a full-time job that was for me. So I stayed. So that was Alice McMullen, and then the next branch librarian was Sarah Stimson, and the next branch librarian was Velda Modell, and the next branch librarian was Ernest Crewman, and then the next branch librarian was Marilyn Kuiper. And then we have Rosalie Buxton. So I have worked under 6 branch librarians.
A lively place.
Yeah.
You have to be on your toes all the time. Now, you said you didn't drive until you were 40. Tell me about bus service.
Bus service
public transportation.
used to be wonderful. The person nowadays, the young person that has no concept of public transportation. You could stand on any street corner and within 10 minutes a vehicle would come along. There always was a trolley car coming along. If you missed one, the next one was coming right.
Which line, Dorothy?
Well, the Boston, the Green Line. The Green Line was the one that I would take. And I figured that all the other lines, the orange lines and whatever, had the same good service. But the Middlesex bus line, wonderful. And
drove between where and where?
Well, I took it between Newton and Framingham. It went on to Worcester. But from what I heard, just no matter where you were going, Somerville, Cambridge, whatever, there was no problem.
And serving, let's say, Newtonville branch, down
That was a good line. That's a good line to be on.
Walnut Street.
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect.
Was that quite frequent back
Oh,
then?
yes, that was good. And don't forget, buses ran at night.
Oh,
You know, you could still get a bus at midnight.
right.
You come out in Boston. You could finish up the movies, have a snack, still get a late trolley out, then still get that late bus.
Oh, great. So the trolleys ran up to where? Here to Newton Corner? The Watertown
yes,
trolley?
yes,
I
yes.
recall that.
Then their home was in Watertown.
Watertown. But getting off here at Newton Corner or Washington Street, you could always
You
hook
could
up with...
still hook a bus.
I remember that, when that ran straight from BU,
Yeah.
right where the tracks
Yeah.
are, right into Watertown. And this, I recall, was much more bustling at the time.
Transfers were wonderful.
Transfers.
You see, for the same a dime that you spent, you could whip on something else with a piece of paper in your hand.
So you could get off at Newton Corner, off the trolley, and then get as far as West Newton or the Waltham
Oh,
line?
further. Oh, yes. You could ride quite a long way for a dime.
I mean, that left a lot of flexibility.
Yes, it did.
Now I won't say anything about those schedules, but they cut them again.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Last fall.
You just about can't make it without a car. A car is no longer a luxury. It is a need. You have to have it to function.
Right. Well, in downtown,
Pretty much.
right, downtown Boston, of course, is crisscross, but even some outlying within the environs of Boston, not well served. This particular situation here is good, but it's always interesting to hear about the. Now, we were just talking about World War II, what little you might have remembered about it, and you said that to get workers to work,
Yes.
they would...
Yes, the businesses would send a car for their workers, and big business, I presume.
Yeah.
And then I suppose carpooling perhaps started
Oh, yeah.
then.
Sure it did, yeah.
And so the business wanted you in there. They got you in there.
I think so. And everybody talked about relative ease of getting around,
Yes.
at least to important jobs.
Yes,
during
that's right.
World War II.
That's
It's
right.
interesting how that evolved. Your aunts and your relatives had an interesting work history.
Yeah, so one aunt, Marion E. Green, worked at the Hyde School. She taught there for many years.
And when did she
46
retire?
years, I think.
And when did
And
she
it
retire?
was somewhere in the early 60s,
Right.
I think. Or the very end of the 50s. And then another aunt, Ethel D. Green, she taught for many years at the Warren Junior High School. And so those two spent their working life as school teachers in the City of Newton system. And they were happy enough with the system.
It probably contributed a great deal.
They did. They were intelligent women, and they really did a good job.
It's interesting, so you were eyeing that as a potential career early.
Yes, I started out with that in mind, but that wasn't quite for me.
Right. I can see there's something about library work that combines, I think, sometimes the best of teaching.
Yes,
Certain other
that's true.
elements.
That's true.
I've always thought that. You know, based on quality of life, so many years in Newton, Dorothy, how would you say comparisons over the years?
Well, I could say that I've been 100% happy, which is a very high percent. According to just me, it's been fine.
And the types of people in Newton now and maybe growing population versus when you were a child, have you discerned a change at all?
Well, it seems pretty basic to me. I can't see any. Seems to be more older people around, but other than that, I can't see any real change. Other than that.
Not faster paced.
Oh yes. I'm glad you said that. That's true. Now that I really start to think, Everything's much more mechanical, and you have to learn two jobs now. Whatever you do in life, you have to learn a computer system. So you learn your job plus how to deal with it via the computer. So it's two careers.
Yeah.
Basically, everyone will have two careers.
Right. And you don't see Newton changing to the worse.
Oh, not for the worst. No, I never have. I can't say that going downhill or ever really went downhill.
Not being a resident,
Right.
I've always thought
Yeah.
it a congenial lifestyle.
Yes, it's been consistently good. Good quality.
I always think of it that way because I have a contrast in my life every day. It's good that you think that way of it, from the source. You think that...
I think that the city of Newton will always cope, and it will always keep pace with what is needed in the future because it has in the past.
You think it's a front runner?
It's a front runner, good word. I can't see it deviating from that course. In any department. They always seem to be trying. And
seems that way to me.
And when I have been into City Hall itself and had to deal with some of the personnel there, I never had a problem. They all seem to be on top of it and seem to know what they're doing. And it's all seemed okay.
City services have always seemed well.
Yes.